Welcome to the LeaderCast podcast, a weekly deep dive into the stories that transformed our guests into leaders worth following. I'm your host, Joe Boyd. If you've been enjoying the podcast, thank you so much for being a listener. One simple thing you can do to help us out is give a review wherever you listen. Today's guest is Derral Eves. He is one of the executive producers of the TV show The Chosen that has become a worldwide phenomenon. He's also kind of the godfather of influencers on YouTube. So you'll learn a lot, including a story about a famous YouTube person I bet you heard of. Derral Eves, welcome to the LeaderCast podcast. Very excited to have you today. Thanks for being here.
Excited to be here, for sure.
Cool. We've connected. This is the first time we met. Not even in person, but over Zoom.
In virtual person.
Sure. But I'd heard about you, and my friend Jeremiah Smith connected me through his work with The Chosen TV show. Definitely want to talk about that. I have a ton of, I'm just curious about how your whole career developed, and maybe we can get some insights for folks out of your expertise. But for those that aren't aware of you, I'm just curious, if you're stuck in an elevator with someone, how do you describe what you do these days, what you do for a living, and what you're passionate about?
That's pretty much the most complicated question you could ask me, because it depends on the day.
Sure.
Definitely an entrepreneur. I own 9 businesses. My passion, though, is around The Chosen. It's like literally a TV show about the life of Jesus Christ and those that he called. So I've been doing that for almost 6.5 years. Wow. So, yeah.
And I've noticed a ton of people I wouldn't expect to be into The Chosen or into The Chosen. And just so you know my background a bit, I often say somewhat tongue in cheek that I'm a recovering pastor. So I spent several years as a teaching pastor at several big churches, and haven't done that for 12 years here or so. And did some filmmaking as well, that a lot of it was in the faith-based world, and seeing the success of The Chosen, and just to me just clearly feels different in a good way than a lot of other things out there. For those that aren't aware of it, could you just tell us a little bit of the origin story of it, and how it came to be and how you became a part of it?
Yeah, I think it more from my story. It all actually started when I was 8 years old. I was in the movie theater with my uncles and was watching The Empire Strikes Back, and I'm like, man, this felt so good. And I just loved it. And there was like all these surprises. And, when Luke found out that Darth Vader was his father, and that moment, I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And so I actually started to be a little bit more hyper aware of content. And the next couple of years, I think, was some of the best commercials on the television. Had Where's the Beef campaign. You had Dunkin' Donuts, Fred the Baker. And I actually saved up all my money, as doing paper route, just so I could buy a VCR, so I could start recording all these content that just made me laugh. And I wanted to be able to share it with my friends. And so I take my VCR over to their house, and we'd hook it up, and we'd watch commercials. That's what I did when I was young. And then the most pinnacle moment, I would say, for me, just decide I know what I want to do, was the Super Bowl. It was 1984, and Wrigley Scott did a commercial for Apple. The commercial was only shown once. Yeah. I actually recorded it with my VCR, and it was just jaw-dropping. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And what was really interesting was the conversations around it. So I became hyper obsessed with commercials, especially Super Bowl commercials. And I used to carry a notebook around and ask people, what commercials they love and why. And I started to see patterns at a young age of, the Cowboys like the Budweiser commercials. Maybe not today, but back then they did. Right. Right. And, there was just other commercials, and I'm like, okay, I get it. I see, certain messages resonate with certain people. And fast forward to high school, I was just 100% marketing, advertising, and I wanted to work with an ad agency that does Super Bowl commercials. And then fast forward to high school, and I really got into sketch comedy, Saturday Night Live. Like, I was really obsessed with Those commercials that they actually have on there, the parodies type stuff. Oh, they were just the best. And Phil Hartman was just so good at just, being the voice of that.
Colon blow, man.
Dude, I'm telling you, that's like by far one of the best commercials of all time, right? And I'm like, oh, this is so good, and I love the creativity. I love the challenge. I love the laugh. And so that was the direction I was going to go. And so I graduated high school, put my life on hold instead of going to college. And I went and did a mission trip, went to South America for a couple of years and really learned more about life than anything else before. Because before, I'll be honest with you, Joe, I thought the Earth and the solar system revolved around me.
Sure.
And then I learned very quickly it's just the complete opposite, so I was able to gather that, and I came home and I'm like, okay, I'm all in. Got into the university, was able to get really good connections. I found a university that had really good connections in a couple ad agencies, and it was actually a university close to me. And my senior year, I had 2 job offers to go just ground floor after I graduate. One was in LA with an ad agency, and one was in Chicago. And right then and there, I found out that I was going to be a father. And it was one of those moments that I had to just kind of reevaluate my focus, because here we were excited, my wife and I, and we had a conversation, and what was interesting from this was, I just wanted the best for her, and I'd give up everything. And I was thinking about, okay, what would it look like raising my daughter in LA or Chicago? And we decided, you know what, we're going to forego my dreams of working with an ad agency that does Super Bowl commercials. And I'm going to start my own business, and we'll just start my own agency here. And I just wanted my daughter to be around her family. That was really important to me. And so that's kind of how it all started. And then doing agency work, local businesses, 2005 really transformed my life, October, because that was the first time I went on to a website and played a video that it actually played. Didn't have to buffer back then. It was called YouTube. Yeah. And I went all in on YouTube. Like, that was my jam. I saw the future of it. I went all in. And that year I made about 865 videos, about 18 months. And businesses, we were doing mom and pop shops, all this other stuff. I got creative with some of this stuff, but it was just really getting people to get the phone to ring, get customers, and so on and so forth. And that literally just kind of started to expand, where I saw actually the true power of YouTube and the true power of video. And honestly, it brought my childhood back in synergy. Yeah. And it was this. I just found out I really didn't want to make videos that commercials that were on the Super Bowl. My internal desire was to make content that people would talk about. They'd actually have conversations, it impacted them, because it impacted me, and I'm like, that's what I wanted to do. And I started to use YouTube for that. Worked with some of the biggest content creators on the planet. They weren't big at the time, but they were really, really massive. As we're working with them, growing the audiences, and then taking those views and then figuring out, how to really build a business around this. And so did that very religiously since about 2008. And ultimately worked with the biggest brands in the world, biggest creators in the world. And then I just saw this short film that this creator made from Elgin, Illinois, for his church, called The Shepherd, and it spoke to me, man. It was content. It was like my Empire Strikes Back moment, where I watched it. I'm like, man, this is so good, because I'm a follower of Jesus. I love Jesus. And it was just so good and so engaging. And it spoke to me. And come to find out that I was going to meet the guy that created this. And I could tell it was low budget, but my back in my mind was like, what if we could do this the right way? Like, what if he had like, a really decent budget? What could he create? Because what I found in content, when it speaks to you, is hitting on an emotional human level that is far greater than anything else, and that's the hardest part. It really is. It's a hard craft to crack. So met Dallas Jenkins for the first time, and he shared with me his vision for a TV show. And I'm like, I'm all in. And I'm like, tell me, like, how long have you had this idea? And he's like, I've literally pitched this idea to studios and different people trying to get money. Everyone's told me no. And I'm like, well, I'll tell you yes. But, and so we actually, I called my wife up and told her that we were going to invest into a TV show about Jesus. And she's, oh, that's nice, dear. That was great. And he and I started with zero. Like we started at that moment with zero. But what was beautiful was we had his vision of what he wanted to do for the show. Yeah. And where this is the leadership podcast, that like this, I think there's something to go a little bit deeper into it. It's great to have an idea. And that's basically what it was at the time for Dallas. It was an idea, right? Yeah. What we did next was probably the most important thing we could ever do for The Chosen, which was we locked ourselves at an Airbnb for a couple days, and we tried to define what we are and what we're not, how we're going to respond online and what we're not. What is the content going to be and what it's not going to be? Now that's Dallas's job, the content side. Yeah. But the business side is like no one knew about The Chosen. No one even cared about The Chosen. And here we had to do one of the most monumental things, which was raising the money from the crowd to support a show that they've never seen. It's like, how do you do that? And so locking our way and working on our brand and our brand identity, and really the way that we wanted to communicate is the way that we are in real life. But we wanted to make sure that the brand translated properly, that it could create impact. And believe it or not, one of our brand identities is we like to disrupt. Like, I am a disruptor. I like to disrupt things. I don't think, things that are just normal, like I just don't think there has to be a better way of doing this. That's just actually in my DNA. And for us, that's a really big brand identity, because, when you really look at and learn about Jesus, he was a disruptor too. He literally came in and flipped the town upside down. It was like, hey, there's a better way of doing it. And so that's basically how I got all started into it. I know that you asked, from my side of the story coming into it, that's the longest, intro of this, but I think it gave context, because I don't think it'd be as relevant, my journey. Because it's like, at the end of the day, I get really excited when content speaks to you in a way that you talk to others about it. And it's just, that's what I just felt like my whole life I wanted to create. And then I've always just surrounded myself with people that are very, very talented in ways, and I'm talented in other ways, to really amplify that.
Well, thanks for that background. That's super helpful to understand. I would love for just a second, if you could brag for just a second. I think for those that haven't heard of The Chosen, and this is LeaderCast is not a faith-based organization. We're open to people of all faiths and no faith and all sorts of things. But The Chosen is, in my mind, broken out of like the niche market of, say, evangelical Christianity or something like that. Could you just explain to those that don't know, like, how the phenomenon and kind of how big it is right now, and how many people are seeing it, that sort of stuff?
Sure. Yeah. Sure. So for us, The Chosen, we want everyone to see it. And so we're an independent TV show. So that is an anomaly by itself. Usually that doesn't happen. Usually you have a studio or, some big streamer behind you. So we're independent. And that gives us the ability to try to do it differently. We're self-funded, we're crowd-funded. That's also a big deal. We actually broke the all-time crowdfunding record in film and television, and that was on a TV show about Jesus. And then the way that we distribute it, and this is probably one of the big learning lessons as a leader. You have to see you have plans and you have ideas, but you have to see what is the best way to do it. So when we started the show, nobody was watching it. Like we were trying to figure out, how do we get people to watch it? And that was actually, we had this amazing gold mine, and we're like, only if people could watch it, and so we just basically took a step back and said, why is this, like, what's stopping them to watch it, and it's a pretty big ask to watch a television show, believe it or not. And so we kind of break it down, and believe it or not, one of the first best decisions that we did was decided to go back in time and create a media platform that people could watch, which was the DVD. Like who does DVDs? Right. And so we did DVDs, and then we ended up doing our own app. But the biggest moment was there was just that cost there's a barrier to get people involved, and get people to purchase the show. And when we actually went live on YouTube. And we live streamed the episodes. We had this global audience came in, and it was for free. Like YouTube was for free. There's no paywall, no nothing. This is the interesting thing about that, Joe, is like we had all intentions, like we want to pay so that we can make more seasons. That's the only way we can make more seasons, is if we get people to pay, right? The first day that we did that live stream, we made it for free. We had other ways to monetize. I just want to make that clear. We had other ways to monetize that was established, and we made 4x more money than we've ever made when we live streamed that first episode. And then the next one, it was quintupled. And I'm like, what is going on? I call up Dallas. I'm like, dude, like what is going on? And he goes, I don't know. Like by the third day, we're like, okay, God, he wants us to be free or something, because like we're just making more money as we get more people to watch it. And so that we went to a free model, and it kind of led us into that direction for that. And so I do believe, like, if you're in a leadership role, you always need to have a plan. You need to execute on that plan, but then you got to analyze: did it work? Did it not work? Why didn't it work? And then adjust. And that was our adjustment. And I can honestly say that adjustment made it so that we have over 200 million people watching it worldwide. It's translated in 600 languages. We beat out Baywatch, the most translated languages TV show of all time. And now, we're doing disruptive things where we're releasing a TV show in the theaters and becoming #1 in the box office. We've done that several times. And then also we're on the CW and other places. Like we just did a big deal with Lionsgate that they're getting us around the world. And so like we're able to really control our destiny with this content, and we get to choose where it goes. So it's like one of the cool moments was I just love content, right? And I know that we released season 3 just on Amazon for Amazon Prime. We're the #3 show like on all of Amazon. It was like it was so surreal of just seeing that. It's like, wow, there's just people can go everywhere and watch it, and yet we can still make money, and we can still produce more seasons, which I'm really excited about.
To go back to when it was free and you started accidentally making money, right? So was it donations or was it advertising off YouTube?
Yeah, so advertising on YouTube was minimal, so that wouldn't have even paid for too much on that. What it was on YouTube live streams, they can donate. And there's a donation model that was there. We have a gift store where people could buy our merchandise, and that was a really, really big portion of it. Okay. Believe it or not, as people wanted to wear the merchandise, the gifts that we had, and then we actually had a way which was called Pay It Forward. So it's like ability for people. Hey, it's for free, but things cost stuff. There's bandwidth charges, and if you want people to see it for free, then Pay It Forward. And that's where the bulk of the money came from, was between the gifts and the Pay It Forward.
Gotcha. It does feel like a disruption model to me. I've told other folks about that. And I knew Dallas back in the day. We were both kind of aspiring filmmakers together. And I know we faced very similar struggles, just trying to break in. And you brought up something like as a creator most of my life. There's nothing worse. Sometimes you make something you're not sure if it's good, right? And you put it
Yeah.
out there and people don't like it and you're like, well, it wasn't good. But sometimes you make something that you just know is good, but you can't get people to see it. And that is incredibly frustrating. It sounds like you spent a lot of your career actually trying to crack that nut in a lot of ways to make sure that good stuff can get seen, right?
Yeah. So yes, that's been basically my forte. Like if I was to say what I actually do is I use social, like online, to get more eyeballs on videos and then convert those eyeballs to money. So that's basically my skill set. I've gotten, just yesterday I just crossed 91 billion video views on YouTube, and so there's just, when you actually understand how things work and how audiences engage and how to really grow an audience, that's massive. And so for us, it's actually all around really knowing your lane. So going back to what we did first off is like, hey, we got 2 days, we locked ourselves in, what we are, what we're not, knowing your lane. And then also knowing our message and what our message is going to be. And the disruptive thing was, well, we need social media. Well, most people do behind the scenes after the fact, right? Well, we got to do it before, because we got to create awareness for it. And realistically, we wanted people a part of the journey with us to create this TV show that's never been made before. And so, when you're establishing that, and we've had where it was taking so much of Dallas's time, it was just, okay, we got to insert new people that's coming in. There's been always these challenges, but ultimately it was, we wanted to create buzz around the project, and that buzz would create curiosity, and that curiosity would lead people to watch, or at least to talk about it. And that was our strategy, definitely from day one.
Can you talk a little bit about? I'm interested in how you react to like the term influencer and having influence, because when I think of leadership, at its core, leadership is influence, right? And for most of human history, you led face to face. You influence people. You could write a book or something, I guess. But but the world has changed, and I saw something that even coming out of it was Harvard or Yale or some college like that, the number one job people wanted was influencer, graduating from Ivy League schools. So we live in a world that sort of, in my mind, elevates being an online influencer, really high. Has that been part of your life so much? I guess my question is, when you think about, quote, being a good leader, how do you think about leading people sort of en masse as an influencer? What are your general just sort of gut reactions to the fact that so many people want to do that, and what might people sort of be thinking as they think about that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think just the concept of, being in front of a whole bunch of people and influencing people. I think a lot of people in leadership get a little nervous. They're like, oh, I might say something, I'm going to get canceled, or I might do something that, would reflect badly upon the brand that I'm trying to build. And so they're more hesitant, they're literally more hesitant to do that. Back in 2008 is when I actually saw the power of this opportunity, which is online influence. And I was literally at the core of it. When this wasn't a thing before, but this new generation was coming up and influencing people. And it all came back down to people now have the ability to do what studios only could do before. They could do it themselves, which is through online platforms. And when I saw the impact of just a really good offering from a business or a brand, and then I saw the ripple effect of how fast things could sell. Like I just know my background in marketing and advertising. Man, it takes so much to put an ad campaign, whatever, and yet this influence was able to happen, and yet it impacted. So let me give you a story. We wanted to show an episode of The Chosen. This is a couple years ago. And we went on a live stream and we just said, hey, we're going to show this. It's going to be over here in Nashville. And you can watch it, you know, or it was at Texas. I guess it was Texas, but you can watch it, you know, whatever. 8 minutes, we sold out 3,000 tickets. Yes. You know, 3,000 tickets, like zero advertising. You know, it's just like this influence. And so there's a lot of power in that. And so for me, I believe, you know, you have to be careful. You have to be cautious. You know who you are and what you're not, and not compromise. I think that's really important for me. But really, there's like-minded people out there that want to get behind something. I want to share one with you. This is a really important thing for me. So like, early on in YouTube, like YouTube's my domain in every regard. Like I'm very well known around the influencers. In fact, my daughter laughs at me. She's like, "You're the influencer that influences influencers." I'm like, okay, I like that. But I was noticing a problem that I couldn't stomach as a father. So this is around the time that there's an app called Vine died. It just basically got killed. And then you had this Vine invasion of all these influencers on Vine coming over to YouTube. And I really only liked maybe 2 creators that were coming over. Zach King, one of them, just raised very, very talented man. Yeah. But everybody else was like deplorable acts. And that's what they're bringing over to YouTube. And what was crazy is some of them they were the fastest channels to grow to 10 million subscribers. And they were just doing pranks and things that I thought wasn't a net positive into the world. I thought it was a net negative. Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, I'm like, man, I got to change this. I got to change this. Because what's happening is like when you actually have influencers on the platform that grow really fast, everybody's looking toward what are they doing? Yeah. Okay. And what is their tactics and strategies? Now, I can say most of them are some of the smartest marketers on the planet. But when they're inspiring other creators to say that's the example, that's the gold standard of influence, and they start doing that, that literally, like, it just I don't know, it just eats at me, because I'm like, I'm not one just to sit around and do nothing and see that happen and crumble before my eyes. I'm going to like take action. And I remember having this conversation, really trying to figure out what can I do, and I'm looking for opportunities. And believe it or not, we were scouting to do the Chosen. We were trying to figure out where do we actually shoot the show. And this lady made Perdium Village. Like, she just felt inspired to create this, like, the area that we needed to create the content. She made it, you know. And so we were over there taking a look at it, and I get this DM on Twitter from a YouTuber that I knew. He had about 4 million subscribers, and he's like, "Hey, can you jump on a call?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm kind of busy right now, but I can do it later tonight." And so later that night, I jumped on the call, and he's like, we just totally hit it off, talked for about 4 hours. He says, "Okay, tell me where you're at, exactly where you're at, and I'll be there in 6 hours." I'm like, "You're not going to be there in 6 hours." I'm like, "I will." Yeah. And so anyway, he flew all the way into Dallas, Texas, where I was at. He was there in 5 hours and 48 minutes. Nice. And we sat down for a day, and he there's something about him out of the gate. I knew him before online. I didn't really know him in person, you know, and he was doing disruptive things. And he was saying, you know, he goes, "I just am obsessed with YouTube. I literally want to become the biggest influencer of all time. I want to be the biggest YouTuber of all time. And I'll literally just put all my energy and effort, every dollar that I create and make, I'm going to put it back into the business." And I'm like, "Yeah, I've heard that all before." Like, I mean, I hear it all before. And I called him out on it. I said, "Look, you know," and this kid's like, at the time, he was just turned 19. Okay. So just let's just put it in context. Like, I've heard it all before. I go, "Let me just ask you one question, because this is the biggest question I could ask any YouTuber that has any fame. What kind of car do you drive?" And he looks at me and he goes, "So I know where you're going with this, and most YouTubers will buy a Lambo so they can flex, you know. But if I buy a Lambo, then I have to buy my boys a Lambo, and that's a lot of money that could be going into content creation. And in fact, I would rather give away a Lambo than I can have more people that can go from there. And so like that's kind of what I'd want to do. And by the way, I drive a Buick. And I was like, okay, this kid, at least he had his head on straight in this area, that he wasn't in for the flashy or the fame.
Yeah.
He just wanted to impact. And so we sat down and created a strategy around that. And, you know, he was looking at these Vine creators coming on and saw them as a gold standard. I'm like, no, dude, let's look at your people. And we found in his data, and that's when I started working with him very, very closely. We found in his data that when he actually gave away money to random strangers, he got like 5x more subscribers than just in a regular video, right? And he actually wants to do it. He actually wanted to give away things. He just he loves it. It warms up his heart. Anyway, that led on a journey where you know, the guy's getting, you know, 1 billion video views a month. Like today, he is literally the biggest YouTuber of all time. There's no one even bigger, even remotely bigger. He's disrupting it in different ways. His name's Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
If you want to check him out. And then 2, he's disrupting business. Like he's doing things in business that he's taking his influence and steering it in certain directions. And you know, he's worth, I think, a couple $2 billion now, based on his influence. And, you know, I would not be surprised that he's one of the first trillionaires out there, just because there's so much interest and so many things that he can engage with. It's just selecting the right one that can have longevity long term. But I can tell you this. He started a philanthropy nonprofit. You know, all the money goes to these bigger projects. Like he's made it his goal. It's actually in his will to literally give every dollar away when he dies. Like he doesn't care about the money. He just wants to create impact. One of the coolest things about leadership was when I was working with him very closely. You know, he's like, I want to do something big. I want to do this big collaboration with all these influencers, and let's do something for a nonprofit. So he decided to get with another YouTuber named Mark Rober, and they would actually start raising money to combat all the trees being cut down and, you know, the environment stuff. So they were basically raising money to plant trees around the world, and they did $23 million. And yet thousands of videos of people wanting people to contribute to it. And, you know, they planted well over 23 million trees, which is so amazing. And so that's the power of influence. And so what's been really cool, and it warmed my heart, was he was that catalyst that now he's the gold standard. And so people are looking to him. Oh, doing deplorable planks, that's not going to be good for you. But if I do good things, people actually share goodness around the world, and share videos, and it actually expands your audience. It doesn't narrow your audience. And so that is the new platinum gold standard, whatever that is. And so for me, I think leadership's all about seeing where things need to improve, and looking at the landscape of what you have the ability to influence in that way. And really take action on it. And not saying that I had anything major to do with this, except for inspiring him in ways or seeing things that he wasn't able to see. But it was his decision. He had to make the decisions to do the things that he did. Yeah. But that's where it's at. And so I would say, you know, when it comes to influence, like, I think anyone's insane not to take their message and put it out to other people online. I think it's an easy way to navigate and to create awareness, you know, establish a brand, and really impact the world in ways that you can't imagine.
Yeah. Now my kids will listen to this podcast, because I'll tell them there's a Mr. Beast story, so they'll want to listen. So that's good.
There you go. And tell them that they need to read my book. It's a Wall Street Journal bestseller. He wrote the foreword for it, so at least you get him reading something, right?
Man, I want to watch your time. It's such an honor that you'd spend some time with us today. I do want to ask one final question, and maybe it's loaded, but a ton of people are part of the LeaderCast community that have influence, and probably have a YouTube channel and a Twitter and Instagram, but aren't waking up thinking, I'm going to use that tool to, or maybe a lot of them are thinking, I don't really know how. I put stuff on YouTube, nobody sees it. So for folks that actually, let's assume they have something great to put out in the world. Do you have like some basic advice? The Mr. Beast started with 4 million. What about the people that have 40 or 400?
Yeah.
Any advice for like everyday leaders?
Mr. Beast started with 0, but yes, I think we all start with 0. But yeah. So the thing for me is, if you're not a consumer of content, you're not going to know what good content is, and you're going to think that your content's so amazing. And if you're not looking at, hey, this content is meant to impact someone in some way. So is it to inspire, to educate, or to entertain, or all three? And it doesn't bring that value in, then it's not necessarily worth putting out there, right? It's not worth putting out into that clutter. I actually, the reason why I wrote a book was to help people that really didn't really understand YouTube. They need to understand the mechanics of it, and things to do. And then 2, it's really important for me, since I consume, 60, 70, sometimes 80 books a year, that I need to give back into the pool that I take from, right? And so, I wrote the YouTube formula. This by far is the YouTube Bible. Like, when you really, really break it down, it will tell you exactly what to do, when to do it, how to do it, things that you should consider, things that you need to look at. That's why I wrote the book. And so instead of, reading the book to you to give you the answer,
just go get the book.
Yeah, just get the book. But the key is it's actually a handbook, a tactical guide. And I broke it up into 3 sections. This really things that are important to me is understanding the why YouTube exists. I actually talked about the origin of YouTube and how it evolved from decision making. It actually started as a dating website. I don't know if you knew that, but it was launched on February 14th, and it was a dating website. And come May, they realized that they were trying to pay women in Las Vegas and LA and Silicon Valley $20 to upload videos, but it was hard to upload videos back then, and nobody was doing it. But they found a way to upload videos of their cat, and videos of their snowboarding adventures and, just different things. And so that's when they actually had to analyze, what do we actually do? Are we still a dating website? Are we not? Are we going to evolve into, becoming what YouTube is today, where you can broadcast yourself? And so, but anyway, that's section 1, and it goes into the algorithm. Section 2 is the opportunity. And section 3 is actually the YouTube formula, where it breaks down exactly what you need to do, to create content. But I think the biggest thing is just the desire of the why. I think if you really look at, I think Tesla is probably one of the best examples of what it can do for a brand, having influence. They don't spend money on advertising. Like, if you really look at how one of the most profitable companies in the world started, it started by influence. And really influencing the right influencers. And believe it or not, Tesla came in and brought the right people in first, that were talking about it, showcasing it, putting out videos. That's free content for them. And it all came back down through, really strategically looking at online influence and doing it in a way, an impactful way. So
love it, man. So we'll put a link to get your book on when this podcast goes out. And last of all, the answer is kind of everywhere, but how can people see The Chosen if they want to check that out? What should they do?
Yeah, the best way is to download the Chosen app. You can just go to the App Store, download it, go on your TV, download it. That's the best way. Amazon, it would probably be the easiest for most people. It's out there. You can watch it on the CW. I think it's only on episode 3 right now of season 1, but there's different ways. Netflix has season 1, but if you just type in The Chosen, pretty much on Roku, you're going to see it. On Amazon, you're going to see it. So,
and I would say it is a phenomenally told story. It's well done. It's professional. I have baggage around Christian art that makes me sometimes not want to look at it because of my own story and where I come from. And I recommend this to folks that are followers of Jesus, people that aren't. It's not the sort of thing that tries to convince you to believe anything. It just tells a great story. So it has my recommendation for all of our listeners to give it a chance. Derral, thank you so much for your time. It was awesome. I'm glad that we're officially now virtual friends. So it's great to meet you.
There we go.
All right, man. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you.